the most iconic villain in movie history and the face of Star Wars itself. No character has been merchandised more and no mask is more recognizable around the world. This is the Darth Vader episode. This is the episode I've really been looking forward to. Even with that skinny frame and that simple vinyl cape, this is the action figure everybody wanted. Today we're taking a look at the original Kenner Darth Vader action figure and the legacy it started. It might not seem that impressive now, but at the time, this was quite the entrance. Vader steps through the smoke onto the Tantive 4, surveying the carnage his troops have left behind. He wastes no time showing his power, brutally interrogating Captain Antilles and making it clear that mercy isn't part of his job description. Then he begins his tense game of cat and mouse with Princess Leia. And interestingly, when he learns the plans are headed to Tatooine, he doesn't go after them himself, which in hindsight feels just right once the prequels fill in more of his story. Next, we catch up with Vader on the Death Star, where Admiral Motti dares to mock him and dismiss the Force as an old superstition. For the first time, we get the Vader we all know and love. He begins to Force choke Admiral Motti, and we get confirmation. The Force is real, and it can be wielded. The next time we see Vader, he begins his interrogation of Leia, but in his next meeting with Tarkin, we find out that it has yielded no results. Vader takes a backseat to Tarkin, who hatches the plan to threaten Alderaan. Leia is brought in, and the ultimatum is delivered. She gives them Dantooine, but Alderaan is destroyed anyway. The entire time, Vader menacingly looms over Leia. When they find out that Leia lied, Vader doesn't miss the chance to slip in, "I told you so." When the Millennium Falcon is captured in the Alderaan debris field, Vader puts the pieces together pretty quickly. He figures out they're trying to return the stolen plans to Princess Leia. Not quite right, but close enough. And his plan to turn this to his advantage is actually pretty sharp. Let them escape, track the ship, and follow it straight to the rebel base. It's a solid move, especially in the heat of the moment when the full picture is just out of reach. When Vader arrives at the captured Falcon, he senses something he didn't expect. Obi-Wan Kenobi is here. But even with this personal score to settle, their larger plan stays in motion. Vader informs Tarkin that his old enemy has returned and that he will face him alone. Vader patiently waits for Obi-Wan, and when they meet, we get the first lightsaber duel in all of Star Wars. Obi-Wan allows Vader to strike him down, and Vader does seem surprised that there is no body. Vader steps into the background, but when the attack on the Death Star begins, we see him living up to his best star pilot in the galaxy reputation. He first orders the crews to their fighters, but eventually joins them. He is responsible for taking out all 3 Y-Wings that make the first trench run, including Gold Leader. During the second trench run, he's responsible for downing 2 X-Wings, including Red Leader. During Luke's trench run, Vader takes out his last X-Wing, piloted by Biggs Darklighter. It takes his escort clipping his TIE Advanced and spinning him off into space to take him out of the battle. In The Empire Strikes Back, we get to see Vader's Super Star Destroyer, the Executor. He is patiently waiting on the bridge when reports from Hoth come in. Vader overrules Admiral Ozzel and orders the fleet to attack. Vader is in his meditation chamber when his patience with Admiral Ozzel runs out. He makes his first HR decision. True to form, he joins his troops for the attack on the rebel base. The next time we see Vader, he is back in his meditation chamber and we get our first glimpse of the man beneath the mask. Eventually, the Emperor demands an update and we get our first look at the Emperor. In their meeting, it is decided that the son of Skywalker will either join them or be destroyed. Next, we see Vader outsourcing the finding of the Millennium Falcon to the bounty hunters. When the Millennium Falcon escapes again, Vader makes a second HR decision and retires Captain Needa. With the help of Boba Fett, Vader is able to capture Leia, Han, Chewie, and 3PO in Cloud City. His true goal, however, is to set a trap for Luke Skywalker. To lure Luke in, Vader begins torturing his friends. Knowing their pain will call out to him through the Force. Vader places Han in carbonite and hands him over to Boba Fett. Then, what is arguably the best lightsaber fight in the original trilogy, Luke and Vader face off for the first time. Vader is so composed, so confident that he begins the fight fighting with one hand and makes it look effortless. As the duel progresses, we see just how much more powerful Vader is and that he is superior with the lightsaber. Vader starts trying to turn Luke to the dark side, but eventually Luke scores a glancing blow on Vader's shoulder, which enrages him, and he cuts off Luke's right hand. Vader gives his pitch for Luke to join him and overthrow the Emperor. And then, in what is probably the greatest movie twist of the 20th century, Vader reveals that he is Luke's father. Seeing that Luke chose death, Vader returns to the Executor, where they attempt to capture the Millennium Falcon one more time. When it escapes, Vader forgets to deal with Admiral Piet. Return of the Jedi begins with Vader arriving on the second Death Star, with the mission to have the Death Star construction completed in time for the Emperor's arrival. When the Emperor arrives, we learn that turning Luke to the dark side remains the goal for both. Vader is ordered to the Executor, but as the rebels attempt to insert onto Endor, Vader senses Luke. Vader returns to the Death Star to advise the Emperor that Luke was on Endor. The Emperor directs Vader to wait for Luke on Endor, and when he turns himself in, bring him before the Emperor. When Luke turns himself in, Vader does not try to get Luke to join him anymore. Instead, Luke tries to turn Vader back to the light side. He does not succeed, and Vader brings him before the Emperor. The Emperor begins turning Luke to the dark side by trying to get him to tap into his hatred. The rematch begins with Luke holding back, in a hope to turn Vader back to the light side. Vader does manage to unleash Luke's hate when he threatens Leia. For this, Vader loses his right hand again, his lightsaber, and the duel. The Emperor begins to kill Luke with Force Lightning when Vader decides to save his son. Even though he's being hit with Force Lightning, Vader picks up the Emperor and drops him down the reactor shaft. With Luke's help, Vader gets as far as the Emperor's shuttle, where he asks Luke to remove his helmet, and we finally see the man beneath the mask. Luke ultimately burns his father's body on Endor in a funeral pyre. I have so much to say, but we're only going to scratch the surface. Without a doubt, the Dark Lord of the Sith is the most recognizable character in the entire Star Wars universe. He doesn't even have to be on screen, as his mechanical breathing is unmistakable, and is recognized by anyone who has seen the movies. To this day, Darth Vader continues to top the lists of the best movie villains in movie history. Since being created in 1977, Darth Vader has become one of the most merchandised fictional characters in movie history. His image has appeared on countless products, from toys to posters to lunchboxes to you name it. I doubt there's anybody out there that knows exactly how many times his image has been used. And I'm willing to bet that it rivals or even surpasses icons like Mickey Mouse, Batman, Spider-Man, Mario, or even the mighty Pikachu. Point is, Ralph McQuarrie and George Lucas created an unparalleled movie villain. And once you include the prequel trilogy, the Star Wars story becomes that of Anakin Skywalker, and his story arc is complete. Darth Vader is without a doubt, hands down, bar none, my favorite Star Wars character. Darth Vader was one of the original 12 figures released, and he remained in the lineup for the entire run, all the way from Star Wars to The Power of the Force. The image on the card remained constant. However, interestingly, for Return of the Jedi, a second image was made available. Now, thanks to the telescoping lightsaber, there are actually two versions of the Star Wars card. I have never ever seen a telescoping lightsaber, and quite frankly, I wouldn't know what to look for if I did. For The Empire Strikes Back, we get two versions. We have the Display Arena version, and we have the 4LOM version. For Return of the Jedi, we again have two versions. This time it's due to the two different images used. We have the original lightsaber version, and we now have the added close-up version of Darth Vader. For Power of the Force, they again went back to the original lightsaber version. Speaking of images, the lightsaber version is definitely the cool one, even though it's due to the saber and the color is a little off. The image feels like it's from the movie, however, the background never really matches up to any scene in the movie. But regardless, it is iconic. Now for the close-up version. It feels like it is straight from Vader's arrival on the Death Star. When I look at that image and I see him pointing, I can hear James Earl Jones's voice going, "The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am." Both images are terrific. The saber version definitely has the cool factor. However, the close-up version for me feels more cinematic, and it definitely triggers more memories. On a side note, in 2017 for Christmas, my wife bought me a carded Darth Vader action figure. It was the Return of the Jedi close-up version, and it was autographed by David Prowse. I know, awesome wife. But not so fast. She did prank me. She also went out and ordered herself a vintage collection Darth Vader, and she gave me this one first. And to top it all off, it was damaged with a hole in the back. The seller that sold her this actually contacted her and wanted to make sure that she actually still wanted it. Her response was, perfect. And yeah, she had her laugh. There is a video, and no, I'm never ever showing it. Now, straight on, all the details are there. They did a really solid job capturing all the key features, but when you turn them to the side, you notice that the sculpt is a little too shallow. The mouthpiece doesn't come out as far as it should, and even though all the details are technically there, that lack of depth really makes it feel a little off. They pretty much got it right, even if the end result is a little mediocre. You have to give them credit for getting the concept right. The lightsaber does lean a little bit too far to the orange, but it is definitely recognizable as Vader's lightsaber. It is probably one of the least exciting versions of a toy lightsaber, but it definitely did the job at the time. It's all there. The shoulder armor, the chest box, the belt, everything you expect to see from Vader's look is present in the figure. It might be a little simplified, some of the color hits might be missing, but all the details are there. The details of the belt are all present, and the buckle is actually spot on. But the part that I think they really nailed is the material texture of the suit. It is very accurate to what we see on screen, and I think it's just a really, really nice touch. Well done. Now, for years, I thought the artist got a little lazy when he included the ribbed pattern onto Darth Vader's gloves. For me, whenever I think of Darth Vader's hands, my mind immediately shoots off to Return of the Jedi when he and Luke are on Endor, and Vader says to him, "I see you've constructed a new lightsaber." And at this point, we get a close-up of his hands, and we can clearly see that he is wearing smooth gloves. But when you go back to A New Hope, we actually see that the gloves he wears in that movie do have that rib pattern. So it turns out that the figure is actually very accurate, and who knew? This figure's standing ability is absolutely amazing. I think this is mostly due to that he actually has a very large footprint. And it doesn't even matter that he has that unnatural foot position that is typical of figures from the first generation. It doesn't matter if his arms are up. No fuss, no muss, this figure can stand. You can tell they really tried to do something cool here. They wanted to bring the effect of igniting a lightsaber to an action figure. And by making the lightsaber retract into the arm, they actually pulled it off. However, unfortunately, the trade-off is that we now have an unnatural pose that is holding the lightsaber. I'm not really crazy about the lightsaber that we ended up with. I have a feeling that the telescopic lightsaber would have been way cooler than the one we ended up with. I do also have a feeling, though, if we had gotten the telescopic lightsaber, that those would have broken a lot more than the lightsaber we actually did end up with. The whole idea of the lightsaber retracting into the arm was never ever repeated again, which really feels like history's judgment on the idea. That being said, I have to applaud them for the intent and the creativity. It feels like they really tried to aim high with this one. For me, the vinyl cape works just fine for figures like Leia and Obi-Wan and the Sand People. However, when it comes to Darth Vader and the Jawa, it really doesn't work for me. If they had never updated the Jawa with the cloth robe, I probably wouldn't be saying anything right now, but they did. And once you see the job they do on Han's trench coat and Bib Fortuna's robe, you really feel that they should have been able to give Darth Vader a proper cloth cape. And yeah. And as for the age-old question, should the cape be flipped up or down? I definitely fall on the downside. Definitely down. Yeah, down. This channel is free and always will be. For our second career, my wife and I started a virtual therapy practice called Fresh Solutions Therapy, where we also work with couples. Research shows that couples wait years before reaching out for help. And our experience is that the longer they wait, the worse it gets and the harder it is to undo the damage done. So if this sounds like you, you probably should have reached out for your free 15-minute consultation a long time ago. This is really a case where the sum of the parts comes together to create something that is really accurate, however, kind of mediocre. It feels like all the consideration was given to making him tall, make the lightsaber retract into his arm, and we want all the details present. And what we end up with is a figure that is really kind of gangly. He is tall and skinny and not as imposing as the real Darth Vader is on screen. Darth Vader's pose makes it look like he's standing at attention, and his elongated neck really takes away from his menace. That being said, this figure is absolutely amazing at standing. Kenner clearly felt that they nailed it because they made no changes as the movies went by. And in spite of all the flaws, this was a figure we all needed. And it was probably the figure that most of us would have picked first if given the choice. Vader was always my favorite. I had to wait a while before I got him, but when I did, he was the toughest figure in my collection. In the end, he would always triumph. In my Star Wars universe, he wasn't really a villain, more like the person who kept things in balance. He wasn't evil, but rather the ultimate peacekeeper. As you can see in the picture, in my Star Wars universe, Vader got the Royal Guard, not the Emperor. And as you can see, that is Darth Vader's Death Star, not the Emperor's. Vader was a mainstay in my Star Wars universe, and more often than not, he ended up being one of the heroes rather than one of the villains. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear about your memories of the original Kenner Darth Vader action figure. Head to the comments and share your experiences. And if you have a really cool Darth Vader, you should really be heading over to my Facebook page, Star Wars Relics, and sharing it there with the group. This is the perfect time to check it out. And if you know your stuff, you already know what the next episode is. Until then, take care.